Hey guys, it's Jay from FabFitOver40, and Sunday afternoon, and I want to knock out a couple of videos for our 30 videos in 30 days series. First off, I want to thank all of you guys for continuing to send in awesome videos, or awesome questions for these videos. We've gotten a lot of feedback both through our blog, through Facebook, and also via email on awesome questions for us to answer. So again, much appreciated. We'll do our best to get those things answered in the next couple of weeks, especially for a lot of you guys have been sending me TRT questions. I'm going to save them for like one big authoritative FAQ document for TRT. So again, I really appreciate it. So today's topic is on intermittent fasting. I did an awesome podcast with Dennis Magan of Rogue Health and Fitness. That's roguehealthandfitness.com. You guys should definitely go check out his site. I'll link to that podcast that we did about 6 months ago also when I post this video on the site. But just to talk a little bit about intermittent fasting, many of you know what it is or have heard about it. You know, it's kind of a ragey term. It's been going on for a while. I have to point to Martin Burkans of leangains.com as one of the first guys to really push intermittent fasting to the forefront inside the fitness industry. So what is intermittent fasting? Well, in the nitty-gritty, it's a way to combine all the benefits of fasting to maximize fat loss in a very short amount of time. So how does it work? Well, I'll give you an example of like how I utilize intermittent fasting. Essentially, when someone is employing or utilizing intermittent fasting protocol, what they do is they eat for a certain amount of time during the day, and then they completely shut it down and eat nothing for the rest of the time of the day. So for example, for me, I employ intermittent fasting on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays and Sundays. These are days that I don't train with weights, and these are the days that I want to be as thermogenic or as have my BMR, my basic metabolic rate, as accelerated as possible. So how I do it is I stop eating on Monday night about 8 o'clock, and then on Tuesday, I don't eat again until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now sometimes, depending on my schedule and my life, and remember, everybody has different work lives, and the work-life balance, sometimes life gets in the way, as I call it, and that's fine. But you want to make sure your fast window is a certain amount of time, usually anywhere from 12 to 14, and maximally or optimally 16 hours. So I won't break my fast, quote-unquote, until about 2 p.m. Now, when you do this, what ends up happening is in the window that you're not eating, okay, as your body adapts to this type of diet, your body is insulin signal is supremely suppressed. Okay, so what happens is, we've talked about on previous videos and on the blog, when your insulin signal is really low, your body is in a state where it's relying on its own fat or ketones, if you're in ketosis, to fuel its energy, for its energy requirements. So your primary fuel substrate that your body is burning is fat, and obviously, hopefully, stored body fat from your body. So when you're not eating, there's a lot of things going on metabolically that are optimal from a standpoint of body fat loss. You are catabolic, but if you do it correctly, and I'm about to get to that, how you do it correctly, you can also maintain a healthy fitness level, a healthy physique level from a standpoint of you're not going to be too catabolic where you're going to burn muscle. So how does that work? Well, in the window after your fast window, you're now going to eat your calories. And if your goal is to lose body fat, which most people, when they intermittent fast, they are. Now, some people will do it for maintenance, and we can discuss that in a second too. But if you're doing it for body fat loss, remember, you always have to have a caloric deficit. So how do you figure your caloric deficit? Well, again, we've talked about it, but for the purposes of refreshing everybody, take your weight, times that by 15. That's your maintenance calories today. So, for example, if I was 200 pounds, and I'm not, I'm more than that, but if I was 200 pounds, I would take that times 15. That would give me 3,000 calories. Then I would want a deficit of 20% or 15%. So then I multiply that. By 80 or by 85, and I come up with either 2,400 or 2,600 calories. Okay, so in that window after my fast, I'm now going to be eating all my food. So if I break my fast at 2, and I know I can eat till 8, I'm going to be eating 2,400 to 2,600 calories in that window. Now, you're still at a caloric deficit for your body weight. Okay, that's not also factoring in if you're doing cardio. Now, I do cardio on an empty stomach on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. Okay, I also take my fat-burning supplement, whatever thermogenic that is. I take my Armour Thyroid. I take my Metformin, and I drink a ton of water. So the reality is that as your body gets really used to intermittent fasting, it starts becoming really adept at utilizing your body fat as its primary fuel substrate. Now, I only do it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays sometimes, and I like to do it as kind of a maintenance diet so that on my Monday, Wednesday, and Friday training days, I can eat more unrestrained. I can eat higher carb amounts and not really worry because I know I got Tuesdays and Thursdays to be, to use intermittent fasting as a quote-unquote metabolic blowtorch, okay? Now, for people that have a lot of body fat to lose, okay, you could actually employ intermittent fasting on a day-in, day-out basis. Now, if you do that, it's a little bit more difficult from a planning standpoint because you're going to have to figure out how you're going to train around it. Now, I actually have a white paper that I've written on intermittent fasting. It's 3 or 4 years old. I've offered it on the blog a couple of times. I've given it away. I'll put it as a PDF in this blog. I'll probably update it a little bit, but I'll put it in a PDF for this video as well. So you guys can download it and utilize it and tweak it, to your own individual desires and to your protocol. But remember, if you're going to use it every day, you got to figure out a way to train so that you don't, you're not blowing muscle off. Now, Martin Burkans and other guys like to train on an empty stomach. I'm not a big proponent of that. I feel like if your muscle glycogen stores are super, super low, training intensely, lifting heavy, doing higher reps or whatever, you're at a higher risk for injury. I'm not going to debate that or get into the discussion about that here right now, but I like to make sure that my muscle glycogen stores are somewhat topped off. And they might not have to be completely topped off if you're intermittent fasting, but that you have some muscle glycogen to fuel your workout. So, for example, maybe for someone who intermittent fasts every day, your intermittent fasting protocol breaks at noon, and you basically train at, say, 12:30. So what you would do then is at noon you drink a glycogen source liquid like, what's it called? I can't think of what it's called right now, but glycofuse or some sort of maltodextrin or cyclic dextrin chain carbohydrate powder. You get it in your system right away. You load up your muscle glycogen. It's already been depleted because you've been fasting for 12, 14, 10 hours, whatever previously, and then you train. So again, you're going to have to work your lifting, your weight training, your anaerobic activity around when you break your fast optimally. Now, again, I know Martin Burkans does it differently. Other people do it differently. Just Google it, search around on the internet for different intermittent fasting protocols. I'm sure you'll find some good information on how people cycle their training. But you can definitely do it every day. If you've got a lot of body fat to lose, it's an awesome program, So, again, this is how you would do it. You stop eating at 8 o'clock, 7:30 at night. You then go all the way through the night, drink water. The next morning, you do eat nothing until 12, 1, preferably 2 o'clock. The longer the fast window, the more body fat is going to be preferentially used or burned as a storage form of energy for you. And then you eat your caloric intake in that frame of the next window. So that your feeding window is 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours, whatever. But again, remember, you have to have a deficit. This is not some sort of magical diet where you can just eat whatever you want in your food window and expect to still, utilize all the advantages of fasting. So, remember to be at a 15 or 20% deficit during the time that you're eating. And also one other thing too to keep in mind, remember you also have to understand your insulin sensitivity. So if you're somebody who's an endomorphic person, naturally chunky, fat, heavy, whatever, your carbohydrates should still be low. Okay, so in that window that you're eating, you're probably only eating between 75 and 100 grams of carbs or even less. Okay, if you're ectomorphic, you're skinny, you're long and lean, or you're mesomorphic, you're naturally muscular, you can eat more carbohydrates in that feeding window. So again, just remember those things. As always, you can always send me an email. Okay, you can leave a comment on the blog. I'd be happy to answer your individual questions regarding intermittent fasting. But it really is an awesome diet. A very efficient way to lose body fat in the fastest amount of time. And it's also a good maintenance diet like, Monica and I use when we on Tuesdays and Thursdays when we don't eat as much food and we fast until, around noon or sometimes even later. So anyway, again, we appreciate you guys listening and send us your questions.